Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Min and I'm your host from NDIS Property Australia, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights and guides and brings awareness on all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today we have two very special guest speakers, Cheryl and Chris Joseph. Hello everyone, hello.
Hi Min, how are you?
Thank you, darling and mate, buddy. How are you? I mean, I've been watching you guys for the last 3 years. I'm really excited to talk to you because I met you, Cheryl, a long time ago when you were just breaking out on your own and set up your own business. And you and Chris had a lovely story. And I think you've come a very long journey now to get to where you are now. And I'd like to introduce you guys as guest speakers to our audience about your business, your brand, what you're doing around Australia, what you're doing locally here in South East Queensland, and just understand more about how easy it is to become a SIL provider in this NDIS world. Yeah. Cheryl, Joseph, take it away.
Yeah. So, God, it's been nearly 3 years since Chris and I started this. I still remember the day I first met you, Min, and it seems so long ago. And we've come away. Look, I think from where we were to where we are now, a lot of things have changed in the NDIS. We've also changed, I guess, as an mission, and we have had to make some adjustment and changes to how we deliver our housing model to our participant. You know, we've grown, I guess, along the way. We've learned what not to do and what to do and how to do it better. You know, we have grown quite significantly, but I guess with the way the NDIS is at the moment, you know, we've had to put a bit of, I guess, a stop to our growth and venture into, I guess, other things just so that doing what we're doing, we can continue to do it better as well. And I guess over to Perth, that's been a bit of a challenge for us because I guess Perth is, you know, we're not there, and having to oversee things from afar is obviously a bit of a challenge, and finding the right people to do things for us.
Gotcha. So let me ask you a question. When I first met you, you were both working for the same organisation. How were things back then when as employees for an organisation or as you know, working for someone else to where you are now where you run the show? I mean, was there a big difference in the way the business is run and how you bring in participants for your provider business?
It's always, I guess, different when it is your own business. Being a director, it's definitely, there's a lot of challenges that comes with it in comparison to working for somebody else. I guess this is, you know, however, where I was prior to Aspire Hub, I did treat it as my own, but I actually didn't see what it was like in the background, if you know what I mean. You know, you're constantly thinking about how you can do things better, what else you've got to do. There's always so much going on. It's a 24-hour job being a director, I guess, in comparison to just working for somebody else. It was challenging as well. I put in a lot of hours. Chris put in a lot of hours because we wanted, you know, that organization to succeed because we were very invested in it. But I guess as a director and owning our own business, it is completely different. And NDIS has also changed 4 years on. It's also changed. So we also have to, I guess, change along the way as a director.
Gotcha. So, Chris, how is the role different between you and Cheryl as owners of a business? What do you do and different from Cheryl?
Well, I mean, Cheryl looks after the entire support services within Aspire Hub. So, in other words, she looks after the operational side of things, from intake to customer satisfaction. You know, the list goes on. My passion in the business space is around the compliance, around evolving with the NDIS. As NDIS evolves, new strategies needs to be implemented, and ensuring that the company and its values aligns with what the NDIS requires as well. We are also working on other things, to assist our staff to be better workers. There's a lot of providers out there. Everyone thinks they can come in and become an NDIS provider, but for us, it's all about retention as well, and ensuring that our clients receive, the best services that they're paying for. So, look, in a nutshell, my focus is retention, staffing retention, client satisfaction, compliance, making sure everything is, we're basically in line with the NDIS regulation.
That's fantastic. Now, in 3 years, you've gone from nothing to something big. Where are you with your national presence in Australia? You're in Queensland, obviously, and now Perth, WA. Is there anywhere else, or those two states only?
We're focusing on Perth at the moment because, there's been obviously along the way built. So at the moment, we really want to focus on Perth and get it to that point where we're actually happy with the running. Participants are happy, the quality is there. So finding the right people. However, we are looking into venturing into other region. So we were thinking about South Australia.
Yeah, so yes. So at the moment, what we're trying to establish here is basically to replicate our process we have in Queensland, because it's working very well, to replicate that in Perth. And our goal early next year is to venture into South Australia and also Victoria.
So why Perth of all places as your next step from Queensland?
Well, because Perth was the last state to take on the NDIS basically, and from feedback from talking to other providers and stuff, they didn't have a lot of providers there. They didn't have their knowledge around the NDIS was quite minimal. And myself and the general manager at the time decided to put that to the test, and we took a trip to Perth, and we did go and do a few support coordinators where their knowledge is quite minimal. They didn't know what certain things were. So that was one of the reasons why we decided to go to Perth, so we could establish our footprint there and also educate the community so they understand what the NDIS is all about.
Can I agree with you? We've been in Perth ourselves for the last year and a half or so, and the whole NDIS community there, they're new to the NDIS because they were rolled out last, but they're just needing and wanting and desiring more knowledge and experience from the east coast of Australia. And what I find from a NDIS perspective, that a lot of the local builders and developers and SIL providers and SDA providers, they just don't understand it. We've been through so much on the East Coast, having had the NDIS for the last 5 or 6 years now on the East Coast, and they're only 1 year in. So they haven't been through the mistakes that we've seen in our local areas from a construction development, care provision, SDA services point of view. We've seen a lot of mistakes. We've seen a lot of activity on the East Coast, whereas over there, they're all fresh off the boat, if you want to call it that, And sometimes when they hear something, your opinion, they actually get really defensive about it and think it can't be right, but it's only because they don't know what they don't know. That's the thing. And that's my opinion to you both. Do you agree with that, Chris, Cheryl?
No, I do agree with that with you, Min, because I was speaking to a support coordinator from Perth. She actually reached out to me and she asked if we could actually speak, like what you said, they don't know what they don't know. There's a lot of different information that they're actually being given and they're not accurate, or people just don't know the information, especially families. So they've actually asked us if we could actually speak in one of their network events and have the Q&A forum to give them some of our information. And not that long ago, we were at the Perth Expo, and I felt like we're back to the first expo that we attended here in Queensland, where a lot of people were saying, I'm about to build an SDA house. Would you be interested? And there was about 10 people that came up to us, and I gave them, I guess, some information around what we've seen here in Queensland. And you're right, they weren't very happy with that information because they don't know what they don't know. And they can take that on, or they can just keep doing what they're doing. But yeah, it's just not there yet. And I'm sure they'll catch up.
Yeah, they'll learn from their mistake. We wish them all the best.
Yes.
But anyway, moving on. Moving on. So, what is the secret sauce to Aspire Hub's success? Please tell us what it is. Is it ketchup? Is it barbecue sauce, or is there a bit of a chili in the food? What are you guys eating and drinking that makes you guys so successful?
It's Cheryl. No, I'm kidding. That's the secret sauce. I don't know. What do you think it is, Chris?
I think, just going back, the last few questions journey in the past, we've been with other providers, and although we were employees at the time for these other large providers, we identified a lot of gaps in their processes and how they do things, which is one of the reasons we decided to create Aspire Hub, because we've identified that and we came up with a game plan to be like, you know what, these guys are making these mistakes, or there are gaps in in how they do things. How about we create something and bridge those gaps? So, we have a fantastic team from our COO all the way to our team leaders, where they are genuinely passionate about assisting clients, assisting our participants to receive the best. There are critical things in between, such as compliance, and even with our registered nurse, where she oversees the medical compliance side of things. It basically comes back down to empowering your team to do what they need to do.
I also think, we learn from our mistakes over the years that we've been around. We learn from our mistakes, and we try not to obviously continue making those mistakes. Ways to, I guess, better ourselves and better the organisation to be able to support our participants and own those mistakes, and learn from it.
I totally agree. Couldn't disagree any further. Now, as a business owner myself, the success of any business is your team. How big has your team grown the last few years? Was it hard in the first year, and what are the numbers now, and how many support workers, how many in the office? Where do you see yourselves going in the next year or 2 years with your team itself? And you said you put a bit of a pause for now. So what is the team structure composed of at the moment?
Well, when Aspire's team was Cheryl and I, we started off doing support work. We started off, taking clients out to the community and stuff like that. And because of our interaction and engagement with these participants and the support coordinators, they just wanted us to assist other people as well, which is how it all, we started to grow. At the moment, we're sitting close to 400 staff. That's Queensland and Western Australia. The structure at the moment is we have a COO, CFO, CPO, and then we have our support managers that oversees a cluster of houses, and then we also have team leaders who oversee certain houses, and then we have our that looks after the day-to-day operations within the house itself.
We have a compliance officer.
We also have supplementary staff such as, compliance. We have a registered nurse, training officers. What we do is we inject the funds back into the organization to upskill us, and the overall picture here is so that our clients will receive the best service that they need. In terms of growth, we don't know. We're taking it day by day. We're just seeing what the market needs, what type of services the participants require, and we assess from there, and we implement if we need to.
That's a fantastic story, Chris. So if you have 4 part-time and casuals, I would assume that you have 600-700 participants. Was my guess. What's the rough number there?
No, because majority of our participants are actually SIL and ILO. So we don't do a lot of in-home supports. I can't even tell you exactly how many participants we have, to be honest with you, Min. Our COO is the person to ask that question.
It'd be at least over 400, right? At least.
No, not even that, no, because it's still, it's a bit different. Yeah. I guess if you're doing in-home and community access, you would have a lot of participants. Look, probably just on the top of my head, I'd say
probably about 70
participants. Yeah. And like what I said, 90% of those participants are still homes. Sorry, in the 24/7 supports.
Cheryl, can you explain to our listeners the difference between, you said it's not still in homes, explain the terminology of your model to other models out there.
Yeah. So SEAL is the supported independent, which is the 24/7 supports. They live in one of our accommodations, and they're being supported by 5 lifestyle assistants rotating within that 7-day week. We have what we call ILO, which is the independent living option. They're only supported so many hours of the day. We do ask for that minimum 25 hours. However, some participants require more, are funded more than that. But then we also have what we call, because they're not qualified for in-home, it's that drop-in support. So they actually live in one of our houses, and they're being supported, so many hours of the day because they don't qualify the full-time, the 24/7 supports. That's not necessarily the independent living options. That's just funding under the thing, and they are living in one of our houses. So we are providing housing as well as supports. The in-home supports is more around our staff going into their home, and they're providing the supports within their home. It's something that we don't do a lot of. However, there's obviously a need there. There's also providers out there who are providing that in-home support. So we have a few of those participants. And then we also have community access, which is, taking participants out in the community. So they're either living in their own houses or they're living with us. That's another thing that we provide too. But again, not something that we do a lot of. Just, very rarely we do that.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for the explanation. I'm sure our audience is spinning in their minds what all this means, all the acronyms inside the SEAL world. That's fine. So where to from here with the business where it is now? What's your hope and vision in the long term with what you want to achieve in terms of the model itself? Not talk about location, talk about the model, the staff model, the staffing model, the different type of participants. How do you see things change or evolving from here?
Yeah. So for us as Team In, you've probably seen those studio apartments that we're launching. We've launched 2 this year.
Acacia Ridge, yes.
Yeah. So that model seems to be something that is working, not necessarily for us, but for our participants. What we're actually seeing, and it actually blew my mind when I opened Dara, the amount of younger people with disabilities coming to view the property, saying to me that they are either about to become homeless or are homeless, currently homeless, couch surfing, needing a house and only needing limited amount of supports. So it seems like our model is heading towards that way. We have participants living in there that are only needing so many hours of support, and participants who are living in there with 24-hour supports, which is working for everyone because we also offer that concierge model. We're inclining to go towards that way, working with builders and investors to actually open up more and more of those housing because they're also affordable housing. We highly subsidize participants who are under the age of 21. We highly subsidize the rent. And for anyone that's over the age of 21, they do get the full pension, and we only charge them a small portion of their pension. So it is affordable housing. It's well for them because they have their own little units. It also allows them to become more independent or continue that independence and just needing that, a little bit of supports to come in for things that they need help with. So we're inclining to go down that way. We do have a few more of those units opening up sort of end of the year, early next year. So yeah, so that's pretty much where we're heading. And for me, Min, I've always wanted one of those Dane social enterprise. So we're actually looking towards that as well. So we're about to open up our home in Beenleigh. But hey, watch that space. That one's not just going to be just a day program. It's going to evolve from a day program to other things.
Wow. Can't wait to hear more about that. When do you think they'll be ready, this hub location?
So we're hoping to open next week. We are working towards, like a trial day where participants can just come and have a look at the hub, try some, programs. We've even got a hairdressing studio, free haircuts on the day. So we'll start off with that in Queensland, and then we'll take it over to WA. So if it seems like Queensland is our trial, and then whatever works here, we'll take it over to WA and then tweak it to once over there. So for me, it's about social enterprise. It's about making friendship, having fun, getting themselves out there and trying different things and learning skills.
It's always good to see and hear about small businesses providing support and guidance and mentorship to participants in the community, not just SDA, but still participants as well. And businesses like yours who focus on the needs of the participants in the community, which is very, very important. You know, as I keep on saying on the podcast, investors and everyone else, builders and developers, should think about outcome, not income. Outcome for participants, not income for their return. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you coming across many investors or builders or developers who want to contribute to that kind of property product for the market, whereby providers like yours are keen to work in collaboration together with?
Oh, absolutely. There's actually, and I never knew this until we went to your apartments, there are actually a lot of investors and builders working together to ensure that there are houses like this that are affordable. So when they first thought about this idea, you know, they were targeting uni students. And here comes the NDIS and here comes providers like us who, you know, we think that these models, they're amazing because it is affordable. It's also a chance where participant can live in their own space and not have to always share, because there are other participants out there who don't want to share. But also at the same time, you know, there are participants who would prefer to share and live in a normal house. But yeah, it's amazing that there are a lot of investors that are actually, you know, ensuring that this kind of housing will continue to be built so that they can actually provide housing for people with disabilities.
Gotcha. Are you finding that you're turning away participants who are coming to ask if they can be looked after by Aspire Hub?
I mean, I never say no to anyone, to be honest with you. If I have the opportunity to house, you know, to give housing to everyone, I will. That's, I guess, my down point. However, we have, in collaboration, we have had to say no. It's more around safety. And also around how we're able to support somebody. If we know we can't, we will definitely say no. And if we know it's not safe, say no. However, if there's no huge barriers in place, we will definitely give them housing. So, yeah.
Totally agree and totally understand. Chris, Cheryl, please keep us in the back of your mind. We're doing a lot of work in Perth ourselves in the terms of delivery of housing in the Perth market. But we're also doing a lot more in Southeast Queensland now as well. So we should catch up more often, at least once every 2 months or so, to catch up for coffee or lunch and talk about how we can introduce you to our network of builders and developers and investors who may want to not just SDA housing, but SIL housing and ILO housing and all that kind of stuff. So let's collaborate more in the long term, and let's see how we can introduce more people to you. Now, on your website, do you have videos and photos of this Darra and Acacia Ridge product on there?
It's only a photo of the front. There's not necessarily photos of the inside of the house. However, it is available if anyone ever needs it and wants it.
Are there videos on your social media of these two?
I believe there is. Yeah, on Facebook, there is a video of the Darra property. It's very, very similar concept, more of a two-story property, but it's very similar.
Okay, well, maybe we can get the photos or videos on your social media to link it in the description of this podcast episode for people to see as well. Yeah, that'll be easy. Chris, Cheryl, any words of advice from you guys 3 years in to anyone else out about becoming or grading a care provider business for the community? What words of advice do you have for them out there if they're thinking about this?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's before you open up a SIL home, actually getting to know what the requirements are, compliance, you know, the documentation, what training staff need, what based on what participants' needs are. Because sometimes, and I hope this doesn't come across rude or anything, I guess sometimes it's easy. Some people think that it's easy to just open up a house and then bring participants in. It's not just about that. It's a lot of work. It's not just moving someone in there and think there's so much work attached to that. So it's before you open up a house, know what the processes are, know what the needs are, know what the participants' needs are, and go from there and take it slow. I think we went, gang ho there for a little bit. So take it slow, one step at a time, really. What about you, Chris?
I think, They need to be in it for the right reasons. Their values need to align with community services. They can't look at it like, oh yeah, this is an opportunity to come in here and make a quick dollar and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, that's where the focus is. It's not the clients, it's the money. So they're going to face challenges, but it basically comes back down to their values and if they're in there for the right reasons. Like what Cheryl mentioned earlier, it's not a walk in the park. Running a SIL company, there is a lot of work involved in terms of setup, compliance, everything. So it is quite disappointing, to see out there that there are a lot of providers, but they're in it for the wrong reasons.
No, I totally agree with that as well. I mean, my advice to anyone out there is, if you are a SIL provider, stay in your lane, be good at that. If that's your line of work, then be good at that.
Absolutely.
Don't think about being an STA provider and a investor and a developer and something else. Just do one thing and one thing only, and be good at it. Because at the end of the day, your customers are the participants, and they give their entire life to you.
Yeah.
And you owe them that kind of respect, because they are your customer, your number one customer. And from that, by doing the right thing by them and the community, then word of mouth referrals will come to your way, and then you'll grow your business. So that's my advice to any support worker thinking about doing a care business in the future. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cheryl, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and our listeners. I'll put your link to your website and maybe your social media to the links to the bottom of our description. And I look forward to seeing you more at all the expos coming up around Brisbane and around the country. I think there's no more really to go to. Your focus really is Queensland and Western Australia for now. But maybe next year we'll see you at the Adelaide event as well, yeah.
Yeah, no, you never know. Min, we might be there.
Thank you so much, Chris, Cheryl. Good luck for everything ahead.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Min.
it.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and just share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.